All right, go ahead and call to order the regular council meeting for August 11th of 2022. Have a moment of silence. Amen. All right, need to get a motion to approve the agenda. Joey makes the motion, Scott seconds, all in favor, unanimous. I need to have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Scott makes the motion, Joey seconds, all in favor, unanimous. All right, first order of business will be the attorney's report. No report. All right, then we'll move on to amending the water sale agreement with the city of Demorest. We got a notification from them that they need to go up on the rates because Toccoa had gone up on their rate. This is still the emergency access agreement. And if we make a decision later on that we want to buy from them permanently, we have to probably have to renegotiate that.
Why can't we just do that?
Go ahead and negotiate on.
I mean, this rate's, based on this rate, I think we can get a better rate if we just go ahead and lay our cards on the table.
That's what, if that's the way you'd rather proceed.
Well, I mean, I would just like to have a sit down.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
see where it goes before we agree to this.
Any, I'll second. Okay, then let's have a motion to table the that agreement. Scott makes the motion, Joey seconds. All in favor?
Yeah, the one thing that are we still gonna let David pursue? If there's-
Yeah, and I've still got to talk to Demorest about the same thing. This just would have to, this might be something like in the meantime.
This is a supply more than management.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll work on getting a meeting set up. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous, we're gonna table that to a later date. And
I want to mention there is a clause in our current agreement.
that they can still go, yeah. So the rate still may go up. There's a clause in the current agreement. But if you want to come up with a new agreement first, then maybe that's.
Just sit down. Yeah.
Okay.
Reason to put it on.
Right. All right, next order of business is water operations. As we know, Bruce has been helping us out for the past month, keeping us current, keeping us going. We have a couple of other bids that came in some time ago. What we need to talk about is basically, let me see, let me pass this one page out. Sorry, I'm disorganized tonight. I think Scott has a copy of that. Is that the-
Yes.
All right. What that is, this is after working with Bruce. I've got more copies up here so that people can have. After working with Bruce and working with Gary over the past month, I've compiled what we require, what our water system actually needs on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. And so we need to make a decision, maybe not tonight, but very, very soon, as to how we want to proceed with this. If we hire a company on like we had, if we go with American Water, or if Bruce is agreeable to provide the service through his company and continue on, then All right, so in the past, we've done the company we hired out with did the weekly, monthly and annual work for us. And then we had, I believe Tanya was reading our certain meters on a daily basis. Is that correct? Were you getting chlorine samples? Okay. So she was just doing meters, but we need to be checking chlorine levels on a daily basis and making sure pumps are still on and running. And then by reading the meters, checking the meter readings from day to day to see if we've got a problem that's arising. If you see a sudden increase in production, then it would indicate a leak. So the question comes down to whether or not we want to hire someone or go with a company like we had before with American Water or Bruce at roughly $600 a month, and then have to figure out how to do the daily readings and everything else we need done. Whether we get Tanya to take care of that again and add a little bit more onto her plate from that, or if we want to look at hiring an individual to cover all of this as be our water department that would come in on a daily basis for at least an hour, maybe two, to cover all these aspects. So, any thoughts?
I would like to take this list and discuss it with American Water out of Cleveland
Okay.
and see what their input is. Again, I favor them because they have their own lab.
Mhm.
And so anyone, if we're taking, even with EMS, they were taking samples and Americans doing the testing. So
Correct.
I would, again, I'd like to not make any final decisions until we go over this list with them and then also ask them for a recent quote.
Yeah, we didn't
Because
even.
our quote's dated.
Yeah.
So that's where I would like to proceed.
Okay.
Also, as we sit down with Demarest and discuss rates, we can also discuss, for example, how often we really need to check chlorine levels. They can tell us. Is it really a daily? Is it a weekly? I don't know. But they can give us some insight that we don't currently have. So that's what I would.
There's a report that you have to send in the EPD
Every month, yeah.
that shows the chlorine levels daily.
Oh, okay. How was that being done before?
Know that it was, or it being, or it might have been
Average
pencil.
or- Yeah,
And is the report showing the chlorine levels daily new since we connected the Demarest? Or because of course that's chlorinated source. Prior to that, we were doing the well. Was it necessary with the well?
yes,
It was.
yeah. I mean, it's just us being our own water system, we have to send those reports. But I mean, that's not something that has come through me, so I
Yeah.
haven't seen, it used to, where it was before, but, so I'm not sure, how we put it on.
I know that for the past little over a month, Gary's been reading chlorine levels every day for groups, and he goes around and reads the main meters, the production, what we call production meters, and turns those over to Bruce, and then Bruce would compile his report like we have in the agenda packet. So
Where's he taking the readings at?
I don't know. I think you're supposed to take it to the furthest point, so it'd probably be somewhere near the bottom of Picking Up Mountain, would be my guess. And he may take it here at City Hall. I'm not 100% sure where. So for the past month, a little over a month, it has been done on a daily basis, and we need to continue that here. Apparently, since CPD won't sell the report.
That's my understanding.
So
So,
The thought of hiring someone independently, I told you find someone.
the class 4 water operators license isn't very difficult to get. I think,
That's comfortable.
yeah, right. I think they say it's basically high school math.
I got
So, were you certified at one time for several, okay. In our past, in the town, the clerk at one point was our water system operator. They were certified and our mayor was certified. And then you had town employees, basically our police chief and our part-time officer, or well, actually a full-time officer then, would take care of the daily attributes of that. And then one time Bill decided it was easier if he went ahead and just got certified. And then Bill took over and then we're here where we are now. So it could go back to that, where what your water system operator needs to have is they need to be the one making sure that we're staying compliant with EPD regulations. And then whether or not that's the same person that's out there putting a shovel on the ground to fix the water lines or not is another question. So.
We do have an annual contract with EPD for our regular testing. So I know like EMS used several different labs that they had to take, an emergency test or something like that. They used one in Commerce and probably another one or two.
Yeah,
So.
that's what he.
But our normal lab is through EPD.
I know, like when we had the last weekend when we discovered the leak at Mary Beth's, that when American Water finished up, got everything buttoned up, they went over and tested, took 2 samples and took them with them so that they could verify whether or not we needed a boil water advisory. And we didn't, so we're in good shape. So
Might be beneficial to ask Demarest if there's any automation that could be purchased product-wise to test 1 through 6. I literally just Googled municipal automated water testing. There's a chlorination system you can put in that says it can be used up to 30 days with no check. So a little bit more research. Maybe Demarest might know something. They might have something.
Very much so.
yeah, but you still have to check the actual chlorine level in the water itself. So that can't be done automated by an automated system. It has to be done in person. You have to take the sample out of the water system. We've looked at SCADA systems, which is basically what you're looking at, and they're generally quite expensive for our type of water system. And but there are aspects of our water system we could automate. For example, if we go with Demarest, one of the problems we're going to have is that with the current connection, it being 2.5 inches, it won't supply enough water for us to fight fire off of any of our hydrants. So we either have to do a system where we fill our 60,000 gallon tank, which means we need to manually go and open and close the Demarest valve every few days to fill the tank back up. Or we could get an automated valve to cover that. And we need to get a cost on what that would be, or the cost to increase the supply line from the 2.5 to a 6.
But did the well, I understood that we didn't have proper pressure anyway off of our hydrants.
We do down here.
Right, but nowhere else.
No, well, not on Hickory Nut. Hickory Nut's the only other place. Gorge View had adequate. The problem with Gorge View is you only had a 10,000 gallon tank. So the pressure was good, but you only had 10,000 gallons to fight fire with. But down here we have 60,000. So every hydrant down in this area, all the way out to Mary Beth's, could fight fire. It was adequate for that use. And the pressures were good enough that we dropped our ISO rating when we did that to a 4 from a 6. So our hydrants perform very well down here off of our tank by keeping it full.
So otherwise, without the tank, and it's still a 2-inch line. Isn't it?
From Demarest, yes. So we would probably have to talk to them about what the cost would be to increase that to a 6-inch. I think you got a 6 or 8-inch main coming out the school gate.
You have
on the
a
north
6.
side. Is it 6? Okay. So it would just be a matter of connecting from there to wherever we're connected into our main water line. I'm not sure where that is. So it'd be an additional expense to do that. So, but going back on our well is gonna cost us, we got some bids in, $60,000 to rebuild the filtration system, because one of the problems we found over the past month and a half was that for the last 3 years, the filtration system hadn't been maintained properly. So 3 years, well, they said 4 years, but that couldn't quite be right. I think it was 3 years. So we had repacked the media in 2017, and then we went a couple of years with Metro Water coming out and maintaining that. And then for some reason, they were never called back out to continue maintaining our filter system. So now we've got a system we really can't use. We'd have to have it redone, or we have to buy a new system. So,
That one tank on the left was completely shut.
yeah, that one's the water softener tank, is what they said that we would have to replace it no matter what we do. So, any other input, questions?
Do we know what the cost is coming out of Dennis, what we're paying Dennis, not do, or,
Paying them $3 per thousand right now.
what was the bill? last
Oh.
month? I was just curious what the average
Send
was.
it to y'all.
You know what it was, Scott?
I don't see it.
No, I emailed it to Bruce.
I was just curious. I never
Yeah.
wanted-
Oh, that's the one that we
wanted
had, the
to check that cost.
900,000
Yeah,
gallon use. Okay, yeah,
it was,
Yeah, that was
yeah, that was.
a couple of months. ago.
doesn't come in the same time as our
Here it is.
billing cycle.
Here it is. So yeah, Demers usage from 6/7 to 7/13 was 902,000 gallons. And that was $2,706 bill that month.
So we're averaging around 2,000 to 3,000.
But now in the July report, from Bruce, it says we were 752,792 gallons.
Yeah, so he's reading
So that's
from,
considerably less.
yeah, considerably. Yeah, normally our normal use should be in the neighborhood of about 500,000, 600,000, somewhere in that range. But because of the leak that we had at Mary Beth's, it probably ran us up.
That was
Is that
in
July?
August.
No, that was.
Well, we found it in August.
Oh, but it could have been running.
But it could have been running.
Okay, I got you.
In fact, when Gary read her meter back in the beginning of, well, the end of June, it had water in her meter box. We didn't know that if it had just
Where's
rained.
the Demers meter at?
Demers meter is over by the churches.
So we probably need to read it too.
Yeah, they read it every day.
Minus, okay.
Yeah, they read it every day right now while we're on Demers water.
But their billing cycle goes through almost
Yes.
the middle of the month, and
Yeah.
ours goes
Yeah, that's-
from the
that's-
beginning to the end, so it's never.
I was just seeing what it
matched.
was adding to our budget. That we don't have offset on.
Yeah, so the 900,000 gallons is excessive for what we would normally be using. So the 2,700 would be
Maybe a little higher.
lower. Yeah, it's a little high.
And how much are they wanting to go on?
They're wanting to go up by 96 cents on this particular contract, because Toccoa went up,
Sure.
so it'd be $3.96 per thousand.
It'd be anywhere from 25 to 30,000 extra a year on the water system.
Right,
But, you know, we probably would spend that on fixing things.
right. Well, I sat down and did some back of the envelope calculating, and figured out that for us to produce water, including the cost of replacing the filtration media every so often, would work out to about $1.75 per thousand. But one of the things I've talked to Scott, talked to David about, one of the big questions we have is water quality. Because water out of our well, even though it's gonna be cheaper for us to produce, the quality of water we've been getting from Demorest is, we're not having as much problems. We're not
Yeah, we're
seeing as
not.
much rusty water. We're not seeing.
We won't trash our tanks either.
Right.
In other words,
We
we have
hope.
to clean out the tank more and more often.
Well, not just the tanks, but all of our infrastructure, all our lines will be cleaner.
I even heard from Deb the other day that she's ecstatic that the water's as good as it is now. So,
We did a load of whites that I've never seen things so white. I was amazed.
so
I'm
that,
really pleased.
yeah, and that's a big question. Do we want, is it worth the added expense? We may have to go up on our bills just a little bit to cover that additional expense, but it may be beneficial to just go ahead and stay with them.
Yeah, and Georgia Rural Water Authority, I don't have the figure in front of me, but they actually calculated our cost of water from the well to be higher than you said. But I don't know what they based it on.
Yeah, I was wondering if they based some of that on the additional pumping cost, but that's not to produce water, that's just to get water up the
I
mountain.
think it was electricity was mainly the big one.
Yeah,
You know, how much has our power bill gone down? Have we seen it? Shouldn't see it.
I haven't looked. I'm just trying to check,
Yeah.
but,
Well, you were saying
I'm sure
that
it's
the well systems cost us about 14, 15 grand, and being on Demers is gonna cost us around 25, 30 grand, so, yeah, so there's a 10, 15,000 plus or minus difference.
but
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
so it just sounds like we need to continue to pursue what we can with them.
So your meeting with Demers is becoming more important.
Absolutely.
And then we can talk to them about their willingness to step in and manage the system for us.
Gonna be most familiar with it.
Right.
They've got several people. in the order. It's not like it's one person.
Right. Yeah, and that'd be the same if we were to go, if Raven County was willing to do it. We just need to keep both options open as we're walking through this. So. All right, we'll continue to pursue Demers to set up a meeting and get that going.
In the meanwhile, are Bruce and everyone comfortable with keep monitoring the system?
I haven't had a
How
chance.
long?
I know he's
Gary's
committed to 2
leaving
more
18th.
weeks.
Right, Gary's leaving on the.
And Gary will be leaving Wednesday. So, if Bruce doesn't want to, if I can't convince him to stay on a couple more weeks while we talk about this.
Yeah.
I could have Matt do it, or I could go ahead and see if, American Water would do it on a temporary
Bruce
basis.
have interest in doing permanent?
He might. I need to, I wasn't able to get in touch with him, before the meeting.
I was curious, I thought that's another option.
Yeah, it could be, so it's definitely worth asking. Because he's gotten us back up to speed and gotten a lot of stuff fixed, and he's figured out some things that we need to do, so. Okay. All right, we'll hopefully have something nailed down, or at least ready to nail down by next month.
Need to meet soon.
Yeah, all right. All right,
Mayor, can I ask questions about the water you want to wait till the comment?
let's wait for public comment, because I have some mayor's comments about our water system. So, all right, so we need to set some dates. The next two are kind of in conjunction together, or can be, to set some dates for our millage rate public hearings, if we're going to go up on our millage rate. Now, I know we were talking about waiting for Blue Line to go online.
Yeah.
It is up and running. But we're kind of basing, you put that in hoping people will slow down, but we're also hoping that they won't, if we're gonna base our budget on that. That money's supposed to be used for public safety only. So you'd have to do some shuffling in your budget to make that happen. So the question is whether we want
The rollback rate would go down to 5.337, and our budget is based on 6.62.
to, yeah, so
6.62 is what we increased it. based on-
Well,
or was that current?
I estimated
Yes.
7, but with the digest came in, it's a little lower, so it'd be 6.62.
So we'd stayed at 6 for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And everybody, all the counties and cities around us except one. No, the school board in Habersham's going down. They're rolling theirs back, but the counties are rolling theirs up.
But Habershap's gonna be 11%.
They're going up and then Raven going up.
Yeah, Raven's going
There
up,
we go.
Habersham's going
Put a
up, but-
T-Splosh on top of them, we're having a party.
yeah, so to me, it seems like we need to go ahead and talk about going and raising the millage rate. And so in order to do that, we have to have public hearings. to make it happen. So we need to come up with some dates for that. And we need to have some work sessions. We've got 2 items from our P and Z that we need to get on and start working on the sign ordinance and the tree ordinance. So we need to set up some work sessions. I'd say let's go for the sign ordinance first. All right, and then we'll get that tree ordinance later. So
Late August.
what's our workshop? And what's our, first of all, what's our schedule for the public hearing?
So on the millage rate, 2 of them need to be at least 5 days apart. But 2 of them can be held on the same day as long as one is between 6 and 7 in the evening, which most of ours are, and then one like that. Or you can pick 3, totally different days, but, and you can do one the same date as the date that we would adopt.
So next Thursday, 18th, we not on that. Not good for Joey. Holding.
18th, 25th are both good for me.
25th,
Yeah.
25th is good.
okay, 25th. Okay. And Linda, what 2 can we do on, obviously, the nose rate? Sign. Okay, so no sign on 25th.
So the 25th is going to be open for military. So that is.
Be the public hearing for the millage rate and then a workshop on the sign.
What time?
6 o'clock. So that's a luncheon.
Good with that, I'm glad. Good.
How long does the military generally, is that an hour or, I mean, how long? Or less?
It's just a public hearing, so there's not many differences.
So do we need to decide what that's gonna be tonight? So we can advertise it? Or- Okay.
I mean, we would advertise it, yeah. What our tentative rate would be.
Would it be 6.62?
That's for our budget.
So
So
based on our budget, right? Or it's, or you estimate that, we're satisfied with. it. Let's do that.
that's it. All right. And then what will be our next public hearing?
At least 5 days after that.
So we could have that at the beginning of the next council meeting?
Should be the 8th, right?
September 8th.
And then we can adopt the millage rate after that second public hearing. Council meeting?
And we have 3 public
It'd
hearings,
have 3, okay.
but we want to have one. for-
Yeah, we just want to have one on the first. If we want to get satisfied by
Yeah,
that.
if you want to do a month on the 8th.
Can you, everybody go on the first?
I would be available.
That'd be,
I mean, I'll try it. I've got.
shouldn't they be 3 for the quorum? There's a public hearing and really all the public hearings going to be is for the public to come in and express their concerns. And so we wouldn't really have to have a discussion on that. But so let's do the 25th will be the first public hearing. We'll go ahead and do a workshop on the sign ordinance. And first, we'll just do the public hearing. And then we'll set up a day in, we'll find a date in September to look at the, either continue the sign ordinance or start looking at our tree ordinance. Does that work?
That's all at 6.
All right. Last item on the agenda is the Rubino's application. As you know, they've been here for about 3 months. They're leaving Wednesday. They've already put in their application to come back next year. So I need a motion to accept their application. Greg makes a motion, Tom seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. All right. Sounds good. Mayor's comments. That's what all of this is about. So, first again, I will over here. I apologize. Pass those around, if you will. All right, so what I'm passing out is, spoken with, some people have expressed concerns about our water system and what happens if there's catastrophic failure of that water system. So what I did is I put together an overview of what our water system is. We've got two main water sources. We've got a main well we've operated off of for over 20 years. And that main well is theoretically, now we can't ever prove where a water source comes from in a well, but theoretically, because that well is 200 feet below the surface of the lake, then there's and your stream runs down beside it. That aquifer is continually being replenished and maintained, and that's why that well's lasted as long as it has. Our other water source is Demarest. So if the well were to fail, we'd have Demarest. Now we've been talking tonight about just going with Demarest. So in theory, we can keep our wells operational. Should something happen with Demarest line, we can jump back into our wells and start using them. Also, during a geological survey back in 2018 on the existing well, the geologist found and located 3 additional sites where we could potentially drill for more wells. So not only do we have our main well, we have Demarest, and we've also got 3 sites where we could potentially put a well if something catastrophic were to happen. So the next item on here would be water storage. We've got a 60,000 gallon tank back up the hill over here that provides most of the town's water, pressure for most of the town. Then we've got a 20,000 gallon tank up on Gorge View that supplies water for Gorge View and for Hickory Nut Mountain. And that tank is filled off of either the Demarest or the 60,000 gallon tank, however we're set up at the time. We have one main well pump that fills the 60,000 gallon tank, or that's being filled off of Demarest. At the Gorge View pump station that fills the 20,000 gallon tank, you got 2 pumps. So we've got a redundancy where only one pump runs at a time. It pushes the water up to the tank, and we switch back and forth so that one pump's not being used more than the other pump. We also need to go ahead and pretty soon purchase what would be a backup pump for that system to have on hand in case of a failure of both pumps at the same time. And we had that in place for our Hickory Nut Mountain booster station. When we found out that one of the pumps had failed, we called American Water in, and they took one that we had in storage and put it in its place. And that wasn't the cause of the outages beginning of last month, but that's when we found it and realized that that second pump was not kicking in like it was supposed to because it had failed. So we have 2 pumps at the Hickory Nut station that boost water up to the top of the mountain, and we had a 3rd pump in place to replace that. And right now that pump, I'm not sure where we are on that pump, whether we need to get a bid to replace it, if we need to. I don't think it can be refurbished, but Chris Ward has that set up right now and is supposed to be getting back with us. And he's also wanting to bid a special unit that we can plug into our VFDs that would send an alert out to somebody or a number of people should one of those pumps fail or not come on. And that's something we need, because then we don't have to wait for Van to say, hey, I don't have water. It would send out an alert right away. And that, he says they're not very expensive to get set up. And we got set up and we've got in place with both of our tanks. We also now have a meter unit that tells us every day, I have it set for twice a day. It tells us what the tank level is every day. We don't have to go driving around all the time and checking tank levels anymore. So that could fall off of that list now, that other list. So I wanted to put that in the mayor's comments. I wanted to bring that up and kind of share with everybody what our water system has, that we've got redundancies. There's not really a foreseeable way that we would catastrophically fail and not have water to provide to the town. Now, pumps may go down, and we have to get that, or lightning strikes hitting up Mountain Pump Station. We got to get that taken care of, get lightning arresters put in. Chris Ward's company can do that as well. Juan talked about that when he was up here. So we do have some work to do to prevent a complete failure or a partial failure of the system, but there's really not a way that we would have a complete failure where there wasn't going to be water available in town at some point. Even our well, when we're using it at the highest volume use that we saw, that well would have pumped 18 hours. Would have pumped 18 hours, but normally with normal use it only pump 15 hours in a day. And so there's plenty of time for the well to recover in between usage. So that's what I had for the mayor's comments, and we'll go ahead and go to public comment and keep going if that's what y'all want to do.
First of all, thank you for condensing this. So a few questions I have on the water system. I'm glad to hear that y'all are moving forward and talking to Dennis. Is that my understanding? So that's the short-term plan. In that meeting, who attends those meetings? I'm assuming both you and
Well, at least
Scott being the water.
Scott will be there, and then if I can, I'll be there too.
Okay. Well, obviously, I respect, we have an elected council and y'all doing a great job, but we're where we are from some of the history, and just a snapshot, the previous council spent a lot of hours on a lot of this water reported, for some reason just condensed into here. And the reason I bring that up is on one of these, I read all those reports from this month back, and there's been talk about things to improve the filtration system, SCADA, blah, 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 blah. We've been talking about, so I'm glad to hear that y'all are acting on it. My concern is during all those reports, and I think it was in 2018, and I called it a stick band. His first name is Bob, and Linda may know his last name. But the town spent roughly about $75,000 on looking at the water system, of the entire town. I don't live in the Hickory Nut in Main Street, it's the entire town from the other side of the commercial area. And spent that money between that and I'm saying towards looking at the withdrawal from the lake, which would bring income in. We would guesstimate several $1,000s a month had that done. So that money's been spent, and I'm assuming y'all looks like you're looking at those reports and those kind of things. During that time, it was very evident, I believe our well was put in the late 70s. We're on borrowed time on this well. So, we're talking.
I disagree, because that's what the other geologists have said, is the lake may be feeding into that well. And they don't know.
All I can go by, and I appreciate that, but I'm just going by professional reports of people that have met with the council and so forth. Either way, that well that we have currently is an issue. My understanding question is the town is now looking at talking to Demrest and saying, do they take over a water system or doing the improvements that are necessary for our existing well, which is.
No, the conversation is going to be, first of all, a new contract to permanently purchase water from Demrest from now on and not put the well back in action.
Got
And then also at the same time, talk to Demorest and to Raven County Water Authority and see if one of those two would be willing to eventually take over the maintenance and aspect of our water system, since they've got the employees, they've got the equipment, they've got everything in place. They just have to send someone up to check things every so often, or we could work out a deal where that's what we gotta figure out, what that's gonna look like. But that's what that conversation is gonna be about. The idea is not to necessarily go back onto the well, except to keep it active as a backup should something happen with Demorest Water.
Okay, so obviously, we've already paid for all that engineering work. We have a diagram of every,
The plan is still to meet with Cordelia and pick up where we
Yeah.
left off.
Yeah,
That's not,
well, that's the straw things, like,
right,
Yeah.
but that was part of all that expense.
that's true, but we already have the engineering and all of y'all's paperwork has been paid for of where the 2-inch lines are, where the yaya lines are. Those you're obviously meeting with Demorest. We've done all that, so thank goodness have done that work. And then the withdrawal permit, I'm hearing you say you're gonna continue that communication?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been talking with the mayor
For-
Borough and D Adams. Anytime I see them, and we're still working on it. Right now, we've got the initial contract from Georgia Power, which is not favorable. So we've got to go back and talk to them and see if we can get that straightened out.
Back to this drawing we have of our water system, is that sketch that we're talking about? I haven't seen anything I've asked for.
Right engineering provided.
Red, yeah, they provided a sketch, looked like a kid drew. Is that it?
Oh, no, we've
We've
got
got the map,
an aerial photograph
Yeah.
where he drew
that's
lines
marked
out
off where the lines are.
and,
Yeah,
and what he,
that's it, right?
Yeah, Tom and I saw it when we first came on board.
I like
I've only seen it once, but
yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, we paid them to do the actual thing. We had
Yeah.
nothing before that, but no, they actually have drawn everything.
I think there's a big map on
Yeah.
the desk,
So we got that.
or that's where it was.
Okay.
So at what,
Those blueprints.
It was like an area.
Oh, maybe that's in there too.
Does it identify all the line types? Yeah.
I think it does.
It's just like colored with like.
I've seen the color one, it wasn't too impressive, but hopefully it's not that. I would love to see it.
Yeah, okay. We'll see.
Because if you paid for that sketch. Okay,
Not the one you're thinking.
okay,
yeah, and it has the 3 phases around the town.
yeah.
Right.
So with EPD, when do they have to be notified, or do they have to be notified of when we're going from right now, where we want to?
they're already notified,
Yeah, there is.
because we've been at Demorest for 2 months.
So we're just gonna stay on that for now. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime we have a change of water operator, then they're notified as well. They were notified within 12 hours.
So
of
we're
the switch.
purchasing water.
Yeah, that we were purchasing water from Demorest and that we had a new water operator. Someone that would be reporting to them on our behalf, so.
And I think in our negotiation with Demorest, it's logical that if we buy water from a municipality, they take care of our water line to kind of service us. So if you can
That's
get
what
a
I'm
part of the
thinking.
service,
Yeah,
take care of the
Especially when
system,
we're
it makes
taking
sense. Yeah.
what has been an emergency agreement now, and we're looking
Yeah,
at
making it to a
permanent,
permanent, and
then,
the cost works out great.
and they need to just belly up to the table and
Yeah, I got you.
let's figure it out.
And I believe their permit, I may be mistaken, I believe the permit from Toccoa is up to 6 million a day. And they're only doing 1 million.
Hmm.
So we could easily, with 500,000 a month, we're using 18,000 a day typically. So it shouldn't be. So it's not like we're gonna tax their system and they can't sell water to other people.
But they're not new at it.
No.
You know, I mean, that's the confidence that I have.
Yeah, and they're already providing water to the other half of our town. So,
Figuring out the water lines.
yeah, and what, I'd really rather have that 6-inch main than have to go turn a valve every few days. But something,
Once you bring it there, like I said, we work on that.
didn't get all that ironed out. So I'll work on getting that set up with, I guess we need to talk to their mayor.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Hart see if we can get something set up next week. So,
Thank you.
any other public comment? All right, then I need to have Joey vacated, but I need to have a motion to go into executive session for litigation. Scott makes the motion, Tom seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. Joey's absent. All right, so.
Yeah, you left that last time.
It's
like a baby in the
Yeah.
Here goes.
Thank you all.
So let me just have you say something to you before you go into executive session. So I